We bought the building back in 1985. Residential use wasn't a zoning option downtown, so one of the first hurdles was to get it spot rezoned to be residential with incidental home office. We were looking at the live-work model. So that was one challenge. The second was getting a building permit. It was pretty atypical at that time for someone to convert or adapt a building to residential downtown, and it took us a couple tries to get a building permit. And then financing, this is 1985, was a real challenge because most of the banks were saying, if you decide you don't want to live there, we can't imagine anyone else would want to. So those were all challenges just beyond thinking about the building.
We went to every bank in town, literally. One bank we went to, the guy asked us what we were going to do with the building, and he just laughed. He laughed at us. So that was a challenge.
It's interesting to think, because we've been here 33 years now, how living downtown has become a much more acceptable idea. And we were really interested in being a part of revitalization of downtown Greensboro. There were some interesting opportunities design-wise with the footprint of this building and the challenges of daylight. It's 75 feet deep and 25 feet wide. Because we're in the primary fire district, we could not open up any windows on the sidewalk. So we really tried to optimize the daylight from both the front and the rear of the building. That led to a lot of decisions like raising the flooring areas, putting in a long light slot on the side, and using a partial wall on the front that still lets the prismatic glass of the transom come through to the back. And of course, the windows behind us really bring a lot of daylight into the building. What are some other design decisions?
Well, one was an opportunity that goes back to virtually ancient history of architecture and design. Tied to the planet and the proportioning system that was evident in the building. We discovered it, and we used that to do the layout of the spaces mainly on the first floor. While it's not recognized by people walking in the building, my perception is that it makes the building quiet. It's a relaxed set of space. Everything understands all the different pieces relative to the whole, and that's very significant. So to me, that was a major opportunity.
He's talking about the golden rectangle and how this layout is really two golden rectangles overlapping. I think we were really intrigued with being a part of Old Greensboro, South Elm Street, being respectful of the streetscape, and also looking for the loft type space that would allow us to have a live-work situation. And so a lot of our thoughts about what was appropriate were tied to how to treat the facade, choosing materials like beadboard, and really trying to celebrate the prismatic glass transom in the front.
There's two basic advantages of living in a historic building from my perspective. One is that you take advantage of, or you recognize and you live with the design knowledge that is ancient, that is in those buildings and goes back way, way, way back. That's just part of the design. In today's world, we tend to start everything from a whole new place when we design, and that really doesn't work too well in a lot of situations. Another reason that's even more basic than that is that when you restore an historic building and you want to adapt it to a current lifestyle, you're not throwing it away. You're not hauling it to the dump. And when you think about the use of natural resources, it's very difficult to justify throwing the number of buildings away that we throw away today. The more you can use a historic building or an existing building, the more appropriate you are to the times.
The advice I would give someone thinking about tackling this sort of project is to really get to know the place, to get to know the space. We've done this in phases over the years, and our ideas about what should be where have changed. When we first moved in, we were thinking that eventually we would make this space, we're sitting in a garage with a garage door right behind us. Once we lived here with the windows and built the courtyard, we realized that we would never want to block that view. And it doesn't take a lot of space to make it really feel open or to feel like you've got some nature there. So really playing up that connection with the daylight too is important.
And it doesn't take a whole lot of money to do those kinds of things. I mean, the place back there where the pottle wall is and the arbor over it is amazing. At nighttime, if you're out there and say in the summertime and you have table set up, and there's some little Christmas tree lights in the arbor, and it's dark inside. That very simple, very economically designed space is amazing. You're in another world.
When we moved in, we didn't foresee that we would have 2 children and raise them here, and that really changed our plans for the second floor. So my advice would be to think of it as something that will evolve over time, and to also just to get to know the character of the place.
And just live in it, make changes that are minor to start with, and then spend some time in it. And we're architects. We supposedly design buildings for people's needs. And when I think of all the different changes that we've made over the time that we've occupied this building, it makes one stop and think about what architects are all about.
It's been really exciting to see how much life has come back to downtown Greensboro, and eventually to the south end of Elm Street, which is a little slower taking off.
The analogy I use that makes sense to me is on any given Saturday night at 9 o'clock, when we moved in here, you could take a bowling ball to Market Street and roll it down south on Elm Street, and it would go all the way to Lee Street without ever encountering anybody or anything. Can you imagine that today? I don't think so.
There's so much more street life. There's so much more activity. It's exciting to be a part of that. A lot of things like the breweries and the restaurants and the local shops that have opened up are exciting to watch. When we first lived here, it was dead after 5 o'clock. And now it's very vibrant, particularly on the weekends.